Good evening, friends, and welcome to a Saturday night matinee with Crime Time with Duty Ron and Ed Wallace. Tonight I got again Lieutenant Commander, retired NYPD Lieutenant Joe Cardinelli, co-hosting with me tonight for you guys. It's Ed Wallace's birthday weekend. He is turning 29 tomorrow. So everybody wish happy birthday to Ed Wallace. He's got the weekend off. Joe's in, and we appreciate you being here, Lieutenant. A lot of things developed last night. We're going to talk about, will the FBI take the lead in the Nancy Guthrie abduction investigation? And that's the big question mark. Will the FBI finally say to Pima County Sheriff and Sheriff Nanos, hey, look, we let you, pump your chest for 4 weeks. It's time for the big boys to come in and take this thing over. And there's no more evidence going down to Florida. We're going to take it all in-house. Your thoughts on that as a retired lieutenant commander, Joe?
I think it's great. I think it's exactly what you said. I think they sat down and they said, listen, this is too close to home. It's confusing things. It's getting too muddied over here with comments that he's making. We're going to consolidate this. We're going to take this, make it a little task force, take it to our office. And by doing that, you take the sheriff out of the equation to a degree, because he's not hovering over them saying, I want this, I want that, I need answers, this and that. He'll get them as the FBI dictates it to him. Because once it's a task force, even though you have the personnel assigned there, all right, and you'll get into that, the personnel is still going to be at their location, and they're going to say, hey, we came across with this today, we came across with that. And they're going to tell them exactly what to bring back to the sheriff. So it's not like it's in his house anymore.
Yeah, and it's like Ed and I always say, the sheriff's no longer calling the balls and strikes. He's not behind the plate being the umpire. You've got a completely different location. And let me break this down for you guys. In the beginning of this investigation, Sheriff Nano stood at the podium at one of his press conferences, one of his very few press conferences, and he told us that he has a combined total investigating force of 400 investigators. Joe, it was all over every news outlet. They were talking about 400 investigators combined with the FBI, the Pima County sheriffs, all the surrounding departments that are lending resources for various different operations. 400. Now it's down to 4 and 1. Right? Isn't that what Sergeant Cross said last night?
Yeah, I believe he said 4 detectives and 1 sergeant will be assigned to the task force, which, I think he misspoke. I think he was telling, including boots on the ground. Surrounding departments do come in like that, and they might have had a complement of something close to that with the FBI, but he might have been speaking about, people that are behind the scenes doing the work in the building, because you need everybody inside that building to be doing so much work. And the outside compliments, I think, he probably is close to that, but they're not investigators. They're police officers and people assigned to it. The real investigators are going to be his detectives and the FBI that assigns their personnel to it.
And we also heard from somebody inside who was an active sergeant, Sergeant Cross, last night, that they have 96 detectives. Most of the detectives' experience in the homicide division is under 5 years experience.
That's scary. That's scary for me. For me as a squad commander, I'm telling you that's scary, because I want the people like I had Mikey Heinrich, one of the best detectives you'll ever see. All right, first grade detective, most decorated detective. And I'm telling you right now, I want him telling people what to do. Go ask Mikey what he would do. You want to pair him up with somebody with 3 years in the detective bureau so he can pass his knowledge on. And it's not their fault. They just don't have the people to do that, because the turnovers are ridiculous because of, politics within the department. And that's sad. And it's the same thing in the NYPD right now.
And Aaron Cross, the president of the union that represents all of the members of the service in the Pima County Sheriff's Department, he broke that news in the middle of our show last night, Joe. He was like, basically, I have something breaking to report for your show. So let's go to that, and let's let the audience, in case somebody missed it last night. This was from our Friday night show with Pima County Sergeant Aaron Cross. So let's take a listen to this. are
Sure.
not getting information?
Sure. So I can break a little news on your program here that I spoke with a detective earlier today, and effective Monday, this investigation will essentially be moved to the task force entirely. We will be sending, I believe, 4 detectives and a sergeant to the task force, the FBI, here in Tucson, and then the rest of the detectives have been ordered to essentially finish up whatever tasks that they were assigned related to the case, and then we'll be moving back to a business as mostly usual posture, and it will be essentially fielded on from here on out by that task force.
So 4 detectives, 1 sergeant, and then the rest are FBI agents, and then that's it.
I believe so.
LT, your thoughts? So that was last night, and Joe, I was taken back by that because as you stated, you were just about to say, this is the posture and this is the proper direction of this investigation, because really they're spinning the wheels and there's no new information. There hasn't been a search warrant executed since 2 weeks ago on a Friday night in the rain. He said that the office in Tucson, there's a satellite office. I looked at them. There's several in the state of Arizona, FBI satellite offices. He said it's going to be at the Tucson office, which is just a short jump from the Pima County Sheriff's Office. And the news is reporting that it's going to be, I believe they said I forgot, it was another area that they said outside of Tucson, but that's not the case. They're going to be local in that satellite office. What's the advantage?
Right.
What's the advantage of that, Joe?
No sheriff. That's the long and short of it. No sheriff breathing over their shoulders, and I mean that's the good thing, because you have to understand they're fighting politics with this as well. They're fighting the forces that be out there that keep asking questions. The media. When you tease the media to the degree that he did, we have this and we don't have it, or we have this, we don't have that. When you do that, you leave too many unanswered questions that people want to know. So what's going to happen now, and I can guarantee you this will happen, everything's going to be streamlined. It's going to come, the information is going to come from one source, and I'll be out of that office. When they have something to say, they'll give the updates accordingly, the way they have to, just to say, we're still working on this. We're processing the evidence. And remember, some of this evidence, we discussed it last night, takes a while to process, and you'll start getting more tips, and then they'll still run through them. You'll get tips to the Pima County Sheriff's Department, but it'll be funneled right to the FBI task force, and they'll decipher everything over there.
Yeah. And I think that'll be much more efficient rather than to have guys like chickens with their heads cut off running around and everything being done out of one central office. It was Phoenix. So thank you for whoever put that in the chat. I think I highlighted it. So the news media is running with that. It's going to be at the Phoenix office, which is their headquarters for the state of Arizona, I believe, or that region, that part of the region. But I think I trust somebody from within the department, like Sergeant Aaron Cross, that's going to be the move. They're going to want to keep it close to the actual place of where this crime occurred, right? You don't want to have it too far away from there in case you have to do these emergency search warrants. Joe, we had the A-team ready and available to us at any time if something went off and we swore out a search warrant at the judges, in the judges' chambers in the middle of the night. We'd have the A-team, which is that vehicle that we saw go out, the SWAT vehicle from Pima County. Those are important assets to have when you do these high risk search warrants. But let's go to the chat, because a lot of people are chiming in. Kathy, thank you so much for becoming a new member. Wasn't me. 1952, that was a good year. Sent in $50. Thank you so much for your generosity. And Evie, that is mom of the history chick. She also works for that 3-letter agency. So good to see you, Evie. Thank you for gifting those memberships. It's always a pleasure. There was this issue with we talked very lightly about this last night, Joe, the 2.5 mile out. It was a 2-mile radius that they were asking for video and footage from homes. A homeowner on day, I think 26-ish, comes out and says, I have video of a car at these particular times which are very close to when all of this was occurring. And they were asked by the media. Now, that home and that person was swarmed by media, Joe, as it always happens. And the question they asked was, did detectives come and do a canvass for your home video cameras? And the answer was no. And some of the residents within that 2-mile perimeter also were asked by some TikTokers, some regular live stream folks that are out there. And they also said nobody came and asked for video surveillance. We used to have those teams that would go out, and what would we do? And this is back in the day. Get all the bodegas security cameras. Get all of the not a lot of people had them in their homes, but all of the businesses had it, right?
Yep.
And we'd have to go out there and get them. You would put those orders out, right, boss?
Yeah, it was crude. It was very crude. Some of the cameras and everything. I mean, it was like the VCRs over there. People had those hooked up too. Sometimes I'm serious. They had some of the bodegas that couldn't afford the sophisticated stuff, so they would put a VCR camera there, filming all the time and keep changing the tape and erasing and everything. But people were doing that back then because they were afraid and they wanted something. So I think, Ron, what the problem is over here is that they had a very big misdirection on this. They were running, oh, you got something with this, and they ran crazy on the one thing, and they got tunnel vision, which I strongly, disagree with, and I strongly advise them against doing that. You cannot get tunnel vision. You need to be focused on something. If you want to send a team one direction, that's fine. But once you establish that 2.5-mile radius, you have to go within that radius, and you do not need detectives. You can use police officers and tell them, this is what we want you to do. Knock on the door and ask them if they have it. Look around before you knock on the door. See if they do have the cameras and ask them if they're active, this and that, what the vantage point is. Make a notation of it, bring it back, and everybody discusses that. And then you tell the owners, can we please get copies of this if you have anything between these times? But, it's almost like it's haphazard over here. And I really think that the FBI not taking the lead, they are taking the lead, but they're taking the initiative. Let's put it that way. I don't want to say the lead, because the lead's always going to be with the investigators from the detectives from the Pima County Sheriff's Department, because they have to make their case right now, unless it goes in a different direction of out of state or out of country. So I think this is a good move. I think you're going to see the wheels greased up a lot, and you'll see them moving a lot faster right now.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I want to go to this piece. This is a little old, but it involves that white Kia Soul. Let's take a listen to this. I believe this is from
Guthrie inside this speeding car. A Ring camera not far from her home captured this video the night of her kidnapping. The video comes as Savannah Guthrie posts a new
Inside Edition. That's it. I couldn't get that one out.
plea on social media, vowing that her $1 million reward will be paid in cash.
Was Nancy Guthrie in this car, caught on a Ring surveillance camera the night she was kidnapped? Video obtained by Fox Digital shows a dozen cars triggering the camera.
Joe, before we let this run, did you have you heard about that report that there was a 911 call of a woman screaming from a car? Now, you never know what to believe, but I did hear multiple sources and multiple outlets reporting on that. And if that, in fact, is the case, wouldn't that be something that detectives should be jumping all over?
They should be they have to disprove it as well as prove it. We've gone through that before. You have to find out. It could have been somebody drunk screaming out the window, having a fight with their boyfriend or whatever. But you have to address it. You have to see where it came from, where they can, go and canvass that area as well and say, did you hear anything like this? And if you did, what did it sound like, this and that? It could have been just somebody having an argument. And if it is Nancy, I mean, you're saying that she's out the window. I really don't think the abductors are going to let her be hanging out a window screaming that. So
yeah, I don't think so either. But yeah, like you said, everything has to be run down. You cannot. Right. Every stone has to be unturned as we look at a rock wall here at this person's home. So let's let the rest of this play, and then we'll jump in and we'll take some questions from the audience.
In this car, caught on a Ring surveillance camera the night she was kidnapped. Video obtained by Fox Digital shows a dozen cars triggering the camera's motion detectors as they sped by in the hours after her abduction. But this one is getting intense attention. It was taken at 2:36 a.m. That's 48 minutes after the kidnapped suspect was caught on camera at Nancy's front door. It's also 8 minutes after her pacemaker disconnected from her cell phone, which is the moment she is thought to have been taken from her house. The Ring camera is located here, 2.5 miles from Nancy's home.
So let's look at that. A road that has direct connection to the road. These roads are all squiggly, right, all in and around here. 2.5 miles. Just a little bit outside of that 2-mile radius that they're asking for. And when we looked at that radius, it was pretty square blocks that they were concentrating on. And I guess they did it for a good reason, because it was some of the routes that potentially could be taken when leaving her home. Correct, Joe?
Correct. And you know what they're doing right now, since that came to light, that vehicle, they're comparing it to the routes where they say it was a half a mile away before a camera was picked up. I believe that was it, one of the cameras on the road. But they had also cameras that they're not really recording all the time, from what I was told. And I don't understand that. They should be going all the time. This is your main road over there. But now they'll go back to the stores. They'll go back to the I don't know what gas station it was. I forgot which one it was that they went to, and they'll look for that as well. They'll look for anything to tie it in. That is key, by the way, for the time frame. That's a key piece of not evidence, of clues that you have to go out and look at.
And Joe, I want to highlight this, and I want you to take a little bit of this question here, because there was a lot of misreporting, and someone said in the chat that TMZ was the one to report on that screaming person out of the car. But if there was in fact a 911 call, and of course TMZ, I'm not really a big fan of the reporting from TMZ. I call it the National Enquirer. But if the detectives get calls, let's just play devil's advocate here. If you now are putting out false information, now that can cause a flurry of bad information to be called into the tip line. And once the tip line takes it and they pass it along to the case detectives, they got to run it down, right?
That's right. And we discussed this in the Lacey Peterson case. All right. How John Bueller had to go and track down all the leads that they were break-ins around the neighborhood, and they said you never addressed that. And he came out later on, and Mark Garagos will tell you that he came out and he said, no, we did address this. Because his thing was exactly what we said. And he did a bang-up job with that, by the way. He said, I have to disprove these things as well as prove my case, which I did. And he did a great job. And that's what has to be done here.
Consuming.
It is, but you know what? You have the time to do it, and you have to bring it over there and say, this is what we're doing. This is what we're definitely doing. So
Sarah, thank you for watching from the United Kingdom at 2:23 a.m. We appreciate you. So what we're looking at here is basically the an aerial shot of the Guthrie home. And what we saw happening yesterday was, and the day before that, we saw security camera crews. Joe, I had took you off for a second because I know you're
sorry about that. I had to plug the thing. I saw the battery going dead.
Yeah, no worries. So we have security cameras at all over this house, in the backyard, along here, along the casada, the guest house. They had a professional crew come in and do home security surveillance of this site. And, it just broke my heart to see that happening, just as a detective, as a retired detective, and knowing, and again, this is no shade onto Savannah or her sister or anybody in that family. But like when I saw the scurry of the flurry of crews and the people scurrying around with the ladders, drilling holes in the concrete, in those concrete, the brick walls on the outside to put IP cameras in, and the simply safe signs and the no trespassing signs. I just in my mind and in my body, I just said to myself, why? Why was that not there to begin with? You have an 84-year-old woman who's living alone. Yes, they can be stubborn and say, hey, I don't want this stuff. I don't want cameras. My mother did it to me. And I said, Ma, I don't care what you think. At this point, I love you and I want you to be safe. And if you have somebody living alone at 84 years old, limited mobility in a big place like this, I don't know, man. It just really broke my heart to see that.
Yeah, but you know why they're doing it now? There's a reason for it, because this is going to be a hot spot. Tourists are going to come here. They're going to be looking all over the place. Don't be surprised if you see gates go up to a degree,
And
where they want to. You're going to see that now. And the one-time open area that they have is now got to be secured like a little fortress over there, because it's going to be just like an Amityville, the Amityville Horror House. I'm serious. It becomes a place where people flock to, and the neighbors don't want that. And I'm sure they can keep traffic moving over there and put signs up, no hanging around, no lingering, whatever, they can enforce that. But you answered it. I got to make you laugh though, Roman. You talk about your mom, that you have the cameras up.
Yeah.
Well, a friend of mine had his mother do it, and she was so obstinate. She did not want it, but he put them up there, and every morning she would go by and flip him the bird on the camera, and it was the funniest thing in the world.
My mom didn't go that far, but that is funny. Delana, good to see you, and thank you for being here, and thank you for being a subscriber for so long. I appreciate you and all of the great ones. Kim Alliston from the UK. It's late. It's early in the morning, actually. I say late at night, early in the morning. 2:23 a.m. Channel member, moderator, a prayer warrior. So it's good to see you. Rosemary Jarvis, thank you for being a member for 3 months. Thank you very much for keeping up with this horrendous story. It's more of a horrendous story because you look at the totality of everything that went wrong here, and it goes straight across right to the investigation. When you see Sheriff Barney Fife, who does a better job, Barney Fife was a better investigator than Nanos. But I watched the first, second, and third press conference he gave one on the second, one on the third, and I think one on the fifth. When I watched those press conferences tonight before we went live, I found like some unbelievable stuff. And here's one of my major takeaways. In the first press conference, Sheriff Nanos at 8:31 in the press conference, his phone started vibrating at the podium, and he didn't know how to stop it. He didn't know how to mute his own cell phone, his police department issued cell phone or his personal cell phone. And this is what he says. This is his words. I'm gonna play it later in this video. He says at 8:44 in the first news conference, I can't even figure out how to silence my own phone. Gosh, I got to figure out my phone.
On national television.
I got to figure out my phone. Did anybody remember him saying that or recall hearing that? Put a one in the chat if you remember.
That's sad. I mean, in all my years of doing television with all the different media outlets, the biggest thing I worried about was dropping an F-bomb, which I never did, but he's got to worry about silencing his cell phone over here. That's a little ridiculous,
He didn't know how to shut it down. He didn't know how to shut it down. And for me, that was like a deal breaker for me. I mean, I just couldn't believe it.
But flip it around though, Ron. What did we see last night? We saw the heart and soul of that department, coming on your show to turn around and tell everybody nationally, all right, that this is a good department. They are good men and women, all right. They just have a couple of bad leaders at the top there, which is true. And they did have some good leaders before, and they shouldn't be about politics. You got to let the cops do their job, all right. And if they're doing it the wrong way, tell them in a nice way, instruct them, teach them how to do the job the right way, because number one, they're there, they want to do the job. But I think, Sergeant Cross last night was the epitome of what that department should look like.
The guy was a shining star, a bright light. He should be running for sheriff. And a lot of people feel that strongly. Here's what I was talking about. I'm playing it. I'm going to play it for you guys. This is Sheriff Nanos at the podium. This is the homicide supervisor. This is his homicide supervisor, who we really didn't see or hear much from. But let's just look and listen to this. The phone.
Savannah Guthrie's mom, or if this was just random?
We don't know that.
There it
we,
goes.
we look at all of that, but we just don't know that.
Do they have cameras at the home?
They do, and we're looking through some of that. Yeah.
With this being an active crime scene, is there any threat to the general public?
Trying to figure out my phone.
God, I should figure out my phone. That's what he said.
The look on the detective supervisor's face is pretty funny, though. The way he was staring at it, like, and then he takes it and he puts it in the worst place possible, inside where it echoes more, and that's when it started getting loud. So I mean, it's a light point, but a ridiculous light point. And I have to tell you, he should have really picked somebody to go up there and speak for him. Perhaps that supervisor right there, who probably could have explained things a lot better, But like we said, there's things that are not going to come out until they have to come out, and they will through the FBI.
Trying to figure out my phone.
And he's saying it to the media. Gosh, I should figure out my phone.
You know what that's going to be, right? That's going to be one of your sound bites from now on.
Yeah, I'm going to have Kristen clip that and send that to me. Gosh, I should figure out my phone. Instead of,
pardon my French.
I'll stop it. Okay, so I want to get back to what we were talking about, the white Kia Soul. Okay, it's a long shot. This is not something that's an ooh and a ah moment. Yes, it's something that they have to run down, but guess what? I feel a little more confident that this case is now moved, well, starting Monday on the 2nd of March. On March 2nd, this whole investigation is going to be taken in-house at the FBI's field office in Tucson. And for me, if something like this is in the sheriff's office, I'm now questioning, and I'm a retired investigator. Think about, Joe, the regular people who are watching here. What do you think? If I did a poll right now of how many people in this chat have confidence with Sheriff Nanos, I don't think one person would vote for confidence from him. Maybe one. I've gotten a couple of hate messages that they said that I'm going a little too hard on this guy. But if this was your mother and this was your family member that was in the life in the balance, unaccounted for, 84 years young, health condition, I don't think those people who are sending those hate messages to me, and it was just a few. I got a thick skin, you know that, Joe. But they're like, oh, you should lighten up on the guy. No, this is a guy who's supposed to be the sheriff of Pima County. He's supposed to be in charge. He said at this press conference that there was no public safety issues to the residents of Tucson in the foothills.
And listen to his the way he was described. I mean, think about it. As a narcissist, as he had problems with this, he had problems with the FBI because when they were doing the investigation on his department, and it wasn't a heavy investigation. It's just the way they had to handle certain funds. It's not. I mean, I've seen 10 times worse investigations. Where people went to jail. This was nothing. I tell you the truth. I really think, I agree with that statement. If anything, you were being easy on him. You were, but you hit it on the head. It's the family. It's not about him. It's about the family. Excuse me.
Yeah, Joe, we work for the people. And, at the end of the day, when you have this clown show going on, the guy was mumbling his words. If you're not a good public speaker, look, when I went up in the academy when I was 26 years old and I had to give that speech, I gave a speech about Mayor Koch. And I was in the auditorium with 500, 600 of my classmates. And I had to give this speech at 26. And I never did any kind of public speaking at that point. And I was scared. My voice was cracking. I was not confident. But you don't expect that from a 40-year veteran, from a guy that boasts that I've been in this business for 40 years. Well, according to the crime stats, and Joe, I busted these crime stats out last night. I did the old gumshoe writing on my detective's pad. Homicides from 2020 to 2026, Pima County in its entirety, and it's a big county, 76 whopping homicides. That's 76 too many, right? But they only handled 76 homicides in 6 years. What did we have in 91, Joe? 2,200?
2,200. So, I mean, you think about it, it's 1 year and you're talking over 6 years over here. And they have, how many detectives did you say? 96?
Yeah, total of
96. Yeah, 96 detectives. So, I mean, you're not catching a lot of homicides. You're catching everything else, but you're not catching a lot of homicides. And when you do catch them, you know, you have the, at least you have the time and the effort to put into it because you're not inundated with 2,200 of them, you know?
Yeah, this person puts, why talk nanos now? Stick to the investigation. He, up until this point, well, still, technically, he's in charge of the investigation. How could you talk about the investigation and not talk about this guy? So, Van City.
Well, yeah, you have to understand too, you know, with that, why talk about nanos? Because mark my words for everybody that's watching this right now, Nanos's name will come out later on when they do catch the people who did this. All right. And the defense attorneys will be bringing up his name time and time again and bring him into court to say, well, didn't you say this? Didn't you say that? And it just gives more credence to what defense attorneys live off of, you know, mistakes made by departments. All right. Do I think they're fatal mistakes? No, I don't think they're fatal mistakes, but you still have to answer for them. Just an example, we had a homicide, kid was killed, drug dealer, and people were posing with them. You know, cops were posing with them, you know, taking pictures with them. And somebody got a hold of them, and they had it, and they brought it up at trial, and they hit me up, and they said, Lieutenant, can you explain this? Now it's patrol guys. I said, yeah, I can explain that. The cops taking pictures with, you know, is it appropriate? Probably not. I said, but you know, sometimes you got to lighten the mood a little bit, and guys were just doing that.
Yeah.
And that was it. I said, they lightened the mood. I said, they didn't mean anything by it. It wasn't anything bad about it, but I had to explain it in the middle of a trial. That's the difference.
Yeah, that's horrible. Yeah. Look at this comment from one of our local Tucson residents. She says, Teresa 319. She says, this used to be such a quiet town. Now we have streets filled with homeless and drug users near schools. It's heartbreaking. You know, we heard from seniors in that community, and they talked about how the Catalina foothills is such a safe place that they never lock their doors. That's a mistake no matter where you live, because crime knows no boundaries. Criminals travel. Criminals have car, will travel. And we know for a fact, I would bet my pension on it. A car was used in this case, in this abduction, and the people traveled to from a distance to get to where the wealthier homes are, where it's more lucrative. So those are two things that I would bet my bottom dollar on. So it is what it is. And I think that, you know, the case moving to the Tucson field office is a very good thing. And Savannah Guthrie and her family should be happy. And I can't even imagine what they're thinking right now, because they're seeing all the coverage in the news. They're probably not watching, you know, some of the podcasters and some of these types of streams, but you never know. But again, think about this, folks. If this was your loved one, your mother, your grandmother, your family member, and you had a police department that was complete crickets, not even like, hey, we're working on this. We're going to get this person. We're close. There was no reassurance to anybody, and they are working for the people. And to shut down because you are mad that people are telling you that you're an incompetent, then suck it up, tough guy. It's time to, you know, put your big boy pants on, right, Joe?
Yeah, how much you want to make a bet that somewhere along the line when he was making these statements that somebody did pull him on the side and say, Sheriff, maybe you should stick to this and everything. And because of his arrogance to a degree, and I use the word arrogance because you could be arrogant without even knowing it, especially in a case like this, that he would just turn around and say things that they didn't want said. You know, they didn't want it out there. They didn't want this information out there, but he put it out there anyways, or he skewed it in a direction that confused the crap out of everybody. But you know something, Ron? I want to see something. I know they're keeping it very close, and everybody's asking the $1 million question. how did the person get, how and where did the person get into that house? All right, which will be answered later on. And there's a reason why they're not putting it out there right now. But my thing is, I'm hoping that the FBI this week can take that doorbell video of that individual walking up as nonchalant as he did with a flashlight in his mouth and the gloves and everything, and put that color component to it. Because I think if you add color and you take the night vision effect away from that, you're going to get a lot more tips coming in.
Yeah. Yeah. And we know the FBI has the capabilities to do that. And they have all different kinds of, the behavioral analysis unit, and they, they have these sketch artists and so forth. So yeah, Lisa says, if this was my mommy, I'd be in front of the camera, just saying. Yeah. So Texas Last says, I took Amtrak from Houston to Tucson last summer and then drove up to Phoenix. No disrespect to Tucsonian, I can't spit that one out.
Residents of Tucson.
Yeah, but you couldn't pay me to live there. So that's sad, because you hear about people are saying it was once a great place, and something took a deep nosedive real quick.
Yeah, what took a deep nosedive was the border, with the border coming across. All right, and it wasn't
policing.
Right, and it's not lack of policing, because we know the area that they have, but it's just adding to it where they would need more for this. But it's predators that are coming and using the natural state of this area of people being so nice in this. So that's a haven for them. They'll stay there. And like I said, the healthcare industry, nobody's vetting these individuals. How many people let them into their homes being unvetted? Oh, they're so nice that she did this, she did that. Yeah. Meanwhile, they're casing the places. It's a lot to deal with. That's why I said quality of life crimes should be looked at with this, to see if any of these individuals were part of this at all. I
think, Joe, too, to be fair, not all of us live close to a border. So if you were people like the people along Texas and some of these southern states that have the border, they can tell you better than anybody. And there's tons of them in the chat. So there's a lot of people in the chat saying it's so true.
Hey, Ron, I'll give you McAllen, Texas, Eagle Pass. Go down there. Go down there and speak to the ranches and see what happens. I did a ton of work with that on the radio, and I'm telling you right now, you wouldn't believe what they did, killing the livestock, living on the land. I mean, crazy stuff that people just don't fathom, because they really don't see it unless you put it out there, unless you get people that are willing to put this out there. But they weren't at the time. Now it has to be out there.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, good to see everybody in the chat. Let us know where you're watching, city and state. We'd like to say hello to you. If you're new, please hit the subscribe button, hit that thumbs up. It helps out with the algorithm. We really appreciate that. And thank you to all the new subscribers and the new channel members. Evie and a couple of people gifted out some of those channel members. I did 25 last night as our show ended. So welcome all the new channel members. Hey, this is a local Arizona channel. And it's a young female reporter who's been doing like updates weekly. So this is Nancy Guthrie, week 4. Will the $1 million reward lead to a break in the case? The deep dive and analysis. I'm only going to listen to a little bit of this because I didn't really vet this, so I don't even know what she says. But let's take a listen and see what she has to say. I always like to hear what homegrown local reporters have to say, because we get so much of the feeds coming from, CNN, MSNBC, Fox, and all these different ones. So I like to take a listen to some of the locals. Let's hear what she has to say.
So let's go through the latest of what we've learned. Day 26. Every day I say a new day like this, and we're in the 20s. We're getting close to.
All right, so it's from 26. I thought it was the recap of the whole week. I thought it was recent, but let's just listen just for a minute.
A full month of Nancy Guthrie going missing. There's so much to unpack, yet there's so little to unpack. And it feels like we're getting small tidbits, new information each week. But at the end of the day, we still have no charges, no arrests, and Nancy Guthrie is still missing. Let's go through what unfolded this week, starting with the fact that there is a new reward of $1 million being put up by the Guthrie family. Savannah Guthrie made a video explaining that. We're going to play that here in a second. The FBI said as of yesterday, Wednesday, that they had received around 1,500 new tips since that $1 million reward.
And since then, we heard, Joe, that it just trickled down to really almost nothing, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So it was a flurry on the day that Savannah put out that $1 million reward, brought it up to 1.2 million and change. And then maybe the next day there was still a lot coming in, but I heard now it's like trickled down to basically nothing. I think Sergeant um, Cross alluded to that last night as well. If you didn't watch our show from last night, we had Pima County Sergeant Aaron Cross on with us, and he really enlightened us. I mean, Joe, that was eye-opening, right?
It was, and it gave a good view into, a peek inside the department, how it works, how they do things over there. And I'm going to tell you something. He started the show saying that he's not going to, he's not speaking to detectives about any particulars of the case, all right, because he doesn't want to know. And that's great, because when you're in a position that he's in, when representing everybody, you don't want to ever have anybody say, you let this out, you did this. No, he can let them do that, so.
Yeah, and I want to also acknowledge there was a lot of people who wanted answers, and there was a lot of questions that pertained to the case, and so it wasn't uncomfortable, because I knew he wouldn't be able to answer them. I kind of just skipped over them, because again, I wanted to present him with some things that he could answer, but when it pertains to this case, he's not investigating it. They the sheriff punished him, put him on the phone line to answer if someone says, there's a barking dog next door, or my hose broke and the water's going all over the place. Like he's taking call-ins that when people call to the station house, not 911 calls. He's not fielding tips in regards to this case, which if you were going to have someone working the phones, you'd have a guy that has experience like his working the phone for tips.
Right.
But he didn't even have him on that. He put him on such bullcrap.
Was raised. To put that into perspective, they had received about 22,000 tips in the weeks leading up to that. So obviously there was a new flood that have come in, and a lot of that may be due to the fact that you can submit anonymously. You can go online. They have ways to protect your identity, and they will see that through. So
Hey, Joe, this is a great one from Susan Thompson. Did you see the doormat was never taken in for forensic forensic scrub? And Ed went nuts about this, because that doormat, we saw the perp step on it. Right. So do you think a crack investigator, someone who's investigated hundreds or thousands of homicides, was there? Do you think that would have been taken if it was somebody like that?
Absolutely. Yes. I mean, you would, just on the premise alone that she was removed from the front door, say, you would want to take that because it's better to have it than not have it. And you can actually take it in a condition that it is, and Ed can attest to this better than anybody. And you can get a foot imprint sometimes, something that, and the foot imprint will also tell you the, the weight of the person, approximate weight of a person based on the material that's there.
And
we've gone through that before.
If a guy steps into the brush and there's like pollen or anything like that, and he stepped in to get the stuff to try to put over the camera or do whatever the hell he did. But here, this is the reason right here. 76 homicides, 76 in 6 years, 2020, 16, 2021, 14. This is the whole county of Pima, which, what did you say? It was 91,000 square miles?
9,000, no, over 9,000 square miles, over 9,000 square miles, which is huge. I mean, and if you compare it to New York City, just for comparison, New York City is 305 square miles of, the city itself, the 5 boroughs, 305 square miles. So think about it. We have 8 million people in that 305. They have over a million, about, I think about 1.1 or 2 million they have in, over 9,000 square miles. That's unbelievable. It's a large area to cover.
I have it right here, 9,189 miles in Pima County. I took that straight off of their off the sheriff's website. And the Catalina Foothills is 44.6 square miles. So that Catalina Foothills is 44.6 square miles, pretty decent size. But the doormat, again, is just a huge mistake. And you always have to assume that the perp was standing at that doorway, because they had a really huge clue, ladies and gentlemen. There was blood all over the place. There was blood dripping at that mat. I'm going to pull it up, and so we could look at it again.
And while you're pulling it up, I want to ask you something, and this is right for you. 44 square miles, you're saying?
Yeah.
So could they? I know they can. I know we could do it over here because we could do it for a precinct. Couldn't they isolate that and get the crime stats and the type of crimes and who the perpetrators may have been, and put that chart up there and start breaking it down, saying, hey, it's awful funny. We've been having a lot of people with backpacks doing this, doing that. We don't know if that was done, because we most certainly would have done that. And this isn't Monday morning quarterbacking. This is me taking two detectives, if I have to, take you and somebody else and say, do me a favor, run this down and just give me an idea of what it is, because you don't know if you're looking at the right picture. Right. So you have to put every picture out there.
It's something that maybe they did try to run down. Maybe we don't know, because we don't have access to this case file. We don't know the work that was done on this. So there's a lot of cases where we think, oh, they're doing nothing. Look at Koberger. It took a whole month for them to get him, or more, right? Or whatever it was. It was a decent amount of time. November, and they locked him up in Albrightsville, December 28th-ish, I think. So it was a while. He was on the run, and they didn't even have perp identified, and we all thought, what a joke. These guys aren't doing anything. And now we come to find out they did a tremendous amount of work. They did a tremendous amount of investigative work behind the scenes, and so that could very well be going on here. But
that's right.
You got a freaking clue, like a bloody front entranceway to a home, and Ed was looking for footwear impressions, because we were only going by what Brian Enton recorded with his cell phone, or his camera guy, whatever he got the footage with. It was quick, and he walked up and he was like, oh shoot, there's blood here, let me get out of here. So we don't know how much blood was inside that house. We don't know we know what was outside. But if you're even if you have 3 years on, he said on this case, all of the investigators in homicide have less than 5 years on the job, less than 5 years in homicide. He said some of them, 45 of those 96 detectives on the whole department are level one. That's their lowest level detective with the least amount of experience. And it's because they all left. They all left.
Under half your squad force. That's amazing. That's amazing. And it's as amazing as it sounds to them. Look at the level that we're going through that right now in New York City, where we're losing all the experienced people like Eddie Wallace, all right, who could go out and who would make the big difference in cases to teach these kids. And it's nothing to pass knowledge on. You just go over there, because the people, these kids that are on the job, we call them kids, they want to learn. They want to know what's going on. They want to pick your brain. But when you get somebody that stymies them at the level of the sheriff, I think that's totally wrong.
I have 100% confidence if Ed Wallace was dispatched to this scene and processed this crime scene, the mat would have been taken. There would have been a ton of work done on the outside and perimeter of this house. That crime scene would have never been let go. He wouldn't have allowed it. And he told me stories about how he would fight with bosses when they would say, oh, we want to release the scene. And he's like, no, I'm not done with it. You get to release the scene when I am fully done with it. And even if in a mansion, a huge estate like this, right? I mean, it's not, over the top, but it's big. For a big estate like this, you need days. You need, a whole 5-6 days of complete work, 12-hour days, where you run. I didn't see anybody run over every piece of this grass in the surrounding area with ground penetrating radar. The what we saw in California with the little Sincere and Classic, Orin and Orson West. They ran with ground penetrating sonar radar, and they checked to see if there was anything. And of course, the sheriff transferred the engineer to works on the helicopter. So the helicopter was delayed at getting up into the air. They finally got up in the air, but they didn't have the personnel to put it up. And Sergeant Cross said it's the best piece of equipment. Everybody in Arizona wants it. Crazy, man.
It is. And they had the other guy that got transferred. The one that was the only one qualified. What was he? The tracker?
Yeah.
Yeah. That
Yeah.
was the other one that was transferred. Seems a lot of good people with a lot of good knowledge get transferred, and what does that tell you?
It's,
Tells me
it's
that there's a battle of the egos.
there's a bad seed in Pima County, and it's Sheriff Nanos.
They're hoping that this not only just brings a new volume of tips, but more of the specific quality of tips. And we're going to talk about, what has people talking when it comes to a new reward like this in just a bit. A couple other new things you saw here on your screen. Investigators were back out at Nancy Guthrie's home on Wednesday. It looked like there was FBI agents as well as possibly attorneys, a lot of officials that were in suits back out at the home. That was the most activity that we had seen in the Nancy Guthrie home area for several days. But sources have told us,
we admire Sergeant Cross tremendously because we know the uphill battle that he's fighting there. It's a losing battle. You could see how deflated he was when he talked, although he carries himself so well, but you could see that he still wants to be a cop, and he's a supervisor, and they have him answering the phones, putting him in a degrading position. So part of that reason he's going to leave in 2 years with 28 years of service is because he knows that Nanos is going to be there till 2029. Unbelievable.
Yeah, and that year could be a year of hell. So you got to really give him credit for that.
Yeah, 100%. All right, let's take some questions from the chat. I'm going to just search and grab the front doorbell, and we could look at that and get frustrated and get mad. But listen, I think seriously that the forensics of the digital forensic world is what's going to be key in finding out the geofencing. Nobody's talking about the geofencing, but you damn well know that the FBI and the CAST team, that cellular, those people are wizards, Joe. We had that computer crime squad up at 1PP. I worked there for a month on a loaner, and I couldn't believe the technology. And this was back in, 2000 and something, 2008, 2009. And it was amazing, the technology. But the FBI's CAST team, the folks who do the computer forensics and analysis and of the cell phones, geofence warrants are definitely got those already. But it's just shocking, like you said, that no DOT cameras were up and running, nothing along these routes where, Pima County, I don't know what their budget is, but I mean, you would think that for safety of their residents, that they would put up, like we have these NYPD pole cameras because DOT can't put them up all over. So what does the NYPD do? We take some of our money from our budget and we put up a camera, and it gets monitored by who? Police.
Right.
So, mom to Athena, Ron, 1PP, aka Puzzle Palace. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. So that's somebody who knows. So
Somebody who knows is right.
If you know, you know. Sandra, thank you for loving the show. Thank you for being here. So let's see if there's any questions in the chat. I want to get to them before we wrap up because it's getting late and I want to get that doorbell. I have it in the queue here. Let me just look for it. Joe, can you see the chat from your screen or no?
Yes, I can.
Okay. If there's any questions, just grab them or let me know and I'll highlight them. I'm putting Joe to work.
Yeah, actually,
All right, here it is.
and while you're doing that, Ron, I got to tell you something. For everybody out there who is saying that, we're Monday morning quarterbacking and we're second, go easy on the guy and everything. Listen, nobody's trying to make a fool out of this man. All right. He does a pretty good job in areas of doing that himself. But do you think we're tough? Wait till a defense attorney gets a hold of him. All right. Or somebody else that has to ask the really tough questions and you don't have the answers. I mean, we've been through it. We've been on the stand. We've testified and they grilled us. We go to the CompStat meetings and we get grilled. Nothing compared to what this guy went through. We go through worse than that on a weekly basis sometimes. So it's not like we're throwing, rocks at somebody and we live in a glass house over here. I mean, we went through this, all right? We know what it takes. And we're just trying to let people know that we are accountable to the public and we do have to answer to the public. All right. And if you can't answer the simple questions, and if you're going to let pride get in the way, you're not doing your job. You're not doing your job. He might have something on the back burner right now that we don't know about. He's going to come out and say, well, here, for all you naysayers, this is what was really going on. I hope that's the case. I hope they have everything wrapped up nice and tight with a nice bow in the back, and they present it down the line, and it goes a lot easier.
I hope so too. I hope you're right. I just finally found it. Thank you. Oh, let me get that off. All right. So this is from a long time ago. But this is still something that everyone holds on to. Brian Enton, national news correspondent for News Nation, getting some, getting footage for News Nation. But look, here he talks about.
But the sheriff's office has acknowledged that they are looking into both of those notes. Also new, Elizabeth, I want to show you this video that we were able to get at the front of the house by the doorstep, and it's quite disturbing. You can actually see blood.
So this doormat was never taken in and analyzed. You bring that into a lab, you take it back. Ed says FBI always likes to take stuff like this and ship it straight to Quantico. We saw him take a whole refrigerator in one of the cases in Massachusetts. They took a refrigerator that was inside an apartment where a little girl's body was stuffed in the refrigerator, in the freezer part. They moved out of the residence, and 2.5 years, 3 years later, that same refrigerator was there, and the FBI did a warrant and took the refrigerator whole out of the house, put it on a box truck, and drove it to Quantico. They would have took this. They would have took this and analyzed it, but they didn't.
If you look closely here, Elizabeth, pans down in a second, there is blood outside the front door of.
And there is the stuff that he had in his hand, the perp.
Yep.
On the mat.
Nancy's house, right by the front.
More of it.
More of it right there. That could have been analyzed.
The spit that he was holding that flashlight in his mouth, right? Unknown to unknown to Brian, unknown to anybody, but because they let that crime scene go, a reporter was able to walk up.
Doormat. But there is blood outside the front door of Nancy's house. It's quite disturbing. You can actually see blood. If you look closely here, Elizabeth, pans down in a second. There is blood outside the front door of Nancy's house, right by the front doormat, which would confirm.
And Ed even said, see this whole thing, this whole holder?
Towards the.
This is where he took it off. Ed said, I would have unscrewed that with gloves on and placed that in a brown bag and taken it back to the lab. But guess what? It's still there. They never took it.
Did you notice too that there was an Amazon package over there?
Yeah.
And maybe that was still on the outside over there. But the fact that somebody could get up to this, that's what we're talking about, folks. That's what we're speaking about. This would never happen in a properly
handled crime scene.
Exactly, where the integrity is the most important part of the crime scene, preserving it. And all they had to do was put 2 fixers over there 24/7 to make sure nobody went up there, and you could go back there 100 times and you preserve that crime scene. But to let people know that that's what's going on over here. And you brought up such a great point. He put the flashlight in his mouth. He had to take the flashlight out of his mouth with those same hands with the gloves. Then he picked these pieces up of whatever they are, the little weed flowers. All right. And they're on the ground now. You most certainly could have DNA on there.
Yeah.
All right. Transferred from the flashlight to the gloves to that. You most certainly could have it, but you won't know unless they did test for it. He was
looking with his head down, boss. He had his head down with that flashlight in his mouth. Drool is going to come out. Spit is going to come out. He's breathing. Droplets are going to come out. But more importantly, he had his head down like this. So he's got the thing in his mouth with his head down, open. You're going to get this whole thing. It's so frustrating.
It is frustrating. And even while they were speaking, I mean, these things, I told you with the shows that you've done, the Red Solo Cup is one of Ed's big things. And I'm telling you right now, Pizza Box is going to be the next thing. All right. Because that's like, it's like a comedy of errors to a degree, because when do you just rope it off? I didn't see anything. Rope it off, seal it off, and make it a crime to go in there. Listen, I know Brian. I've been on the show with Brian a few times and spoke to him.
He's been on here.
Right. Right. So think about it. Kudos to him that he, as a reporter, could get up there, but he shouldn't have never been able to get up to that point. All right. Shame on them for letting him happen.
Joe, if you're the commander and you're in charge of this thing, you would be like, patrol. You got to put one RMP with 2 cops or one RMP with 1 cop. I'm talking about a police vehicle with the lights on, like what we saw after Ed and I started going crazy and talking about this. Just coincidental. I know they're not listening to us, but now they had Pima County sheriffs, a fixer. We call it a fixed post. You're done doing your stuff here and you leave. You leave with a police personnel there so he could stop somebody like Brian. He could stop the pizza delivery guy that was coming to deliver to one of the live streamers. This is all innocent stuff. The guy is a DoorDasher or whatever he is, Uber Eats. He gets a job with this address. He's going to go up to the door, especially when there's nobody there to stop him. But guess what? I believe that the pizza guy, there was a cop there, and the cop just let him walk up.
Right.
He let him walk up the driveway, and then the people were like, "Oh no, that's for us over here," and so he didn't make it all the way up. But the cop wasn't even challenging him.
Right. And then we don't even know, Ron, what the entry point was, as we said before, and we keep asking, but hopefully down the road they're going to let that out. So that not being said, why didn't they put cops in the back of the house as well? Where you can see the sides in the back, put 2 cops there and, rope it off, tape it off and say, this is it. Nobody goes over here. And if they do enter this, I don't care if it's the sheriff or anybody else, let them sign a log. They were in there for what reason.
Right.
That's
and
it.
They let the pool cleaners come in weeks after this, a couple of weeks here. Thank you for that, Gail Marie. But you know what? Another thing, Ed, I remember now, I'm really remembering all of this. When Ed and I covered this at first, when we talked before we go live, you know what he told me, Joe? Ed told me that he would have taken the whole door off the hinges. He would have taken the whole door, if not the door, the knob, because this is that's a steel door, and then there's another door on the inside of that potentially. So Ed was like, I would have taken this whole door off its hinges and analyzed this whole entire thing in a controlled environment. Maybe he grabbed onto the bars here. Maybe he touched something or brushed up against something. Maybe his saliva fell onto that doorway. We don't know.
I really still think you're going to find out that there was a second key, because that's a key door. You can't unlock it by reaching your hand in there. That's a key door. It's a special door where people can let the air through the way you see it. But if that's the case, when he ripped that doorbell off and there were no longer a video, how do you know he didn't go back to where he knew there was something stashed?
Yeah. So lots of buffoonery going on here as it pertains to the investigation, and even that Amazon package. I don't even know if I'm the lead on this case and I see an Amazon package, I'm taking that. Not taking it to keep it. I'm taking it to do analyzing of it. I want to look at it. Who touched it?
Maybe that's where they got that driver, and that's why they went and spoke to him. The first guy that they brought in. Yeah.
I mean, we're left to speculate that, but I do believe that is the case. Thank you, Jen B. There's a piece of flour on top of the blood drop, and there's also bird droppings there from pigeons or whatever comes into this little vestibule area. So we'll take another look at it. Thank you for your super chat. And you could see with these little blood droplets, and Ed said she had to be stationary or being carried out of there vertically, So yeah, you see it right here. There's a piece of the debris that he was holding from. Wow, that was loud. Yeah, just so many missteps, Joe, and it's just so frustrating. But I'm hoping that with the FBI taking perhaps the lead on this case, that we see a more professionally structured FBI. We're not going to hear from them. They don't talk. You know it. I know it. We all know it, that us who have been in around them, they don't talk. And like you said, unless they have to.
They speak when they're spoken to.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. When the higher ups tell them this is what we want out there, this is what has to be done. That's why you always see the FBI is probably the most low key speakers at
Right.
all these big events. All right. You'll get them on. They'll be the ones that are low key because they know that their work is done behind closed doors where they do it the best, where they take all this together and then they put it to everything that they have. And when Ed said he would take that door off, there's a reason why Ed says that, because number one, he knows that something could be there. But when you have nothing, you look for something, you know?
Yes. And, look at this comment here. And we appreciate USMC Hoorah Mom 2016. The Amazon package was delivered at a later date. The reporters saw the delivery. Well, if you're actively investigating the case and you have a police officer assigned there, then that police officer would say, hey, let me radio into the detective squad or get on the cell phone. Hey, guys, I think you'd want to know a package just got delivered to the Guthrie residence. Maybe you guys might want to come here and get it. Give them the opportunity, but nobody got it. Nobody came and took it. I don't know who took it. I don't know where that went. So the thing was there. We know Brian Enton walked right past it and other people saw it. There was no activity at the residence. The only time we saw activity was, the few times they came back and forth and did some looking around. So It's crazy. It is crazy. And for people, to say, well, there's no blood, there's no footsteps in the blood print in the vestibule there. Ed said he couldn't definitively say yes or no because it's not what we saw there from Brian Enton was good, but it wasn't enough for Ed to professionally say yes or no. So, and Ed's not going to just guess at something like that. Let's look at some of these super chats and we are going to get ready to wrap it up. Kathy, thank you for becoming a channel member. It wasn't me. Thank you for the 50. Evie, thank you for gifting. Better Winery, thank you for the 10 super sticker. Diane, thank you, Ski, for the $3 super sticker. Raven Gypsy, thank you for the 5. I'd like to know how the needed guy was in the house 41 minutes, if there is no more footage, and why is the car still being held. Car forensics, they sometimes rip those cars apart, take the interiors apart, looking for hairs, fibers, dog hairs, anything that was transferred. Don't forget, Ed talks about the Lacards exchange principle. You go in a house, if you're in there for 41 minutes, and trust me, they didn't pull that 41 minutes out of the air. They're not making it up. There's good reason why they know that 41 minutes is there, but unfortunately, because no one's communicating with us, and they don't have to, there's nothing that says that they have to give us information. I'm saying that they should give information basically just to keep the rumors down. Like, hey, this is what we're hearing out there and it's all false information. Or this is what we're hearing out there and it's good information, but they're not doing any of that. So, the car's being held for a good reason. They don't just keep it just to keep it on ice. They're looking at it. They're keeping it for the investigation, and nobody has gotten their vehicles back, as far as I know. I don't even think Carlos got whatever they confiscated from inside his home. I don't think that they returned that as well. But thank you.
Don't forget, Ron. Excuse, I didn't mean to cut you off there, pal. Don't forget the garage door time. They said they knew how long it took for the garage door to close. And people say, why is that important? Because if it got tripped and it went back up, it means somebody either went in there and tripped it and made it go back up. And that's another way that somebody can get in. But they're saying they're pretty much eliminating that somebody got in there through that by saying the garage door went up and closed. It didn't trip and go back up again. So for them to have that timeline, they have other timelines.
Yeah. Here's Texas RN nurse. Thank you for your service. $5 super chat. Did you see the theory that there were two perps, one first night on the porch due to possible cell phone light? I think that was dispelled in regards to times, because there was no times on the camera, I believe, on that photograph. The sheriff said, and I don't know whether what the case is here, because he was questioned. The news reporters asked him about it, and he said, well, there's no validity to the two people theory because we don't know the exact timestamps for all of this stuff. I guess Ness didn't give them these timestamps. But then I heard that front video, there was a time that they knew. So it makes everybody confused, and there's so much misinformation, and it's all because nothing gets straightened out. I told you last night, Joe, in the Idaho murders, the quadruple murders, there was a whole site on the police department's website of misinformation.
Yep.
So
and that clouds the investigation, and that's why you have to triage all the tips that come in, because you have to set, well, we have this, we had it this time, male caller, they even put down male caller, female caller, and they put everything down, they lay it out, and then they start deciphering all this, and they say, oh, this is just somebody looking for attention, or this could have something to it, and they have to trace these leads down. It's very painstaking at times, and especially with the thousands that they're getting.
This is a good one from Callie Alley. Why were the weeds on top of the blood? So we asked Ed live about that, and he said it was not good enough to see that video to make a determination whether the blood came on top of it, or the the weeds were on top of it, and we don't know. Maybe he had carried her out already, and he was going back to get that camera because they figured out maybe late, or he figured out maybe late that there was a camera there, and he said, oh crap, let me go back and get it. Just possibilities. We don't know. All right, it's been an hour and 15. Joe, you can put in an overtime slip. So hey, I hope that they get to something soon. We're going to keep watching this, but I feel like, unless there's something really major, we're going to kind of pump the brakes on some of the coverage here. People have questions about the family, about Annie, and about the husband, and it's anybody's guess. Could it be them? Maybe. Could they have something to do with it? Maybe. That band member of the husband has got an attorney now trying to clear his name. We see it with all these cases. When there's lack of communication or updates from the investigators, and I'm not saying open up your case file and show everybody, but when there's a lack of open line of communication, we're left to this. That's what happens. It's a fact.
Yeah. Things the sheriff should learn are nothing is off the table. Nobody is cleared at this point. Nothing is cleared. It's a wide open investigation. Everything is on the table. Yeah. That's it. Very simple. You encompass so much when you say something like that. Yeah. And like I said, sometimes less is a lot more.
Yes, 100%. Hey, we want to send prayers, strength, and positive vibe to the investigators, to the Guthrie family. I know Savannah's going back to New York to be with her family, according to news reports. She has a new show that she does, morning show. I don't know if she's going to return to that, but there's a lot of scared people, residents who live in that immediate area, and I hope that these perps, or perp, singular or plural, are taken into custody sooner than later. It just doesn't seem like there's a lot of movement, and just because there's not a lot of movement doesn't mean that things can't develop. Like Joe, you could tell the audience, sometimes cases start slowing down, and then all of a sudden, boom, it just goes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. You get a lot from the jailhouse people that like to, chip away at their time and everything, and say, listen, I found this out from somebody. You never know where the source comes from or how it comes in, but they do wait for these tips, and they wait for somebody to get a break, or a new piece of evidence pops up, or you have the same MO and something else, and something fits into place, and they start putting the pieces together. But they're going to stay on it. When you have the task force, they're giving it the attention they need, but without the undue pressure.
100%. Thank you for that, Joe. Hey, Ed Wallace's birthday is tomorrow, so everybody make sure you come and wish him a happy birthday. We're going to do a members only live during the day, and I'm hoping Ed can jump on, but he's got a whole house full of people, so it's going to be hard for him. He's celebrating his birthday, and he's got his hands full. So we gave him the weekend off. So, Joe, thank you for filling in. Retired NYPD Lieutenant Joe Cardinelli. Always great to hear your professional take on these cases. And guys, will hopefully have some information to give to you sooner than later. And we'll keep an eye on it. Guys, just keep on sending us any information that you have, that you hear about this case. And again, here's the FBI hotline running down at the bottom. FBI tip line, 1-800-CALL-FBI, 225-5324, or submit your tip at fbi.gov/tips. Thank you all for being here. Good night from New York, and we'll see you again. Joe, thank you for being here. I appreciate you, brother.
Anytime, my friend.
I'll see you tomorrow. You're just going to stop by my house, or we'll meet somewhere.
No, definitely stop by.
All right. Good.
All right, bud.
Joe. All right.